Okay, so we're going to pick up where we left off on this truck. This is the air ride conversion, spring ride to air ride conversion on an 09 F750. This is a truck that the rear axle caught fire, and we cut the frame off at the last place that had good paint, we were comfortable with, and got it all set and ready to go to use an airliner rear suspension. So the rear axle that was in that truck, if you don't recall, it was no good. It was the brakes, either wheel seal let loose or brakes caught fire, whichever came first. Was it the wheel seal went bad, caused the brakes to catch fire, or brakes caught fire, burnt the wheel seal and let the oil come out and catch fire, whatever, regardless. I needle scaled this whole thing, this whole frame, front to back, where we're going to be working, and I got to tell you, even after doing that, the old pressure washer still took off a lot of stuff that the needle scaler didn't. That's 3,300 psi, and it's a good strong pressure washer. It needed cleaned up. It had been sitting in the shop. It was getting pretty dirty. So next is we're going to take a blowgun. We're going to blow all the water out of the difficult spots. Same thing on the rear axle. Like, it'll lay in here and won't dry. So we're going to blow the water out everywhere on the truck and the axle. Let it dry until tomorrow. We got 70 degrees tomorrow. So I'm going to prime the axle and the frame, and paint them. Now keep in mind, I am not looking for a show quality truck here. What we're after is preservation. We're trying to preserve this frame, take care of some rust that's already started, kind of neutralize that and get it to slow down so the truck will last as long as it can. We're going to, after I get it, I'm going to try and get 4 coats of paint on it. 2 coats of primer, 4 coats of paint, and then we'll get it in the shop and we're going to go ahead and assemble it. I'm still undecided as to what we're doing on the rear of this, so we may have some touch-up paint to do later, but regardless, let's get it blown off. I'm done pressure washing now, so I'm going to get all the water blown out of them crevices. So I'm using a Rust-Oleum rusty metal primer, and I'm using this El Cheapo Harbor Freight high volume, low pressure spray gun. But what I've done is I've turned it down so it's a nice heavy coat of primer I'm spraying, but I don't have much overspray at all. It's fairly windy on this day, so I didn't want overspray all over the place. Plus I have so many tight spots to get into, there's no need for me to blow paint all over. I just need a real narrow band of paint so I can get it on there and not waste it. And you can see all the nooks and crannies. This rear end took me almost 30 minutes to get the first coat of primer on, and it ended up getting 3 coats, just because there were so many different spots to go around. But after I finish this, I'll be on the cross member. It's actually from a tandem axle Freightliner cutoff. It's huge. We don't need a cross member this big, but I have it. There's no sense not using it. It'll work out good. But now you can see the wind was kicking up here. After I got that done, I come back over to the frame. There was a shadow on the frame, and I wasn't positive I got everything good, so I waited just a little bit longer till the shadow wasn't as large, and I went back over it. What you're seeing me do here now is just using up the rest of the paint that's in the can. What I have in the gun right now, I'm not going to pour it back in, so I'm just going to go ahead and run out however much more I can get, however far I can get on the frame, just use up what we got, because this is about the end of it. I got 2 coats on the cross member, 3 coats on the frame, and 3 coats on the axle. And the biggest reason is just because there's so many intricate places to get in. It's just easier to do multiple coats. That way, if you miss something, you might see it next time when you get a better look at it. Now I'm on to the black paint, and what I'm using here is Rust-Oleum, their enamel paint. I use a reducer and I add a hardener to it, and it seems to work pretty well. I mean, I did several trucks years and years ago, and they still are holding up pretty well. Again, I have low pressure, decent volume of paint, and I'm trying to get into all these cracks real good. This takes a long time. If you really want to get it all, you got to be patient. What I end up doing is I put that rear axle at one one height like this, and I'll try and get everything I can spraying this way. And after I've got everything that I think I can get, and I can't find anything else I can paint, then I'll lift it up higher, and I'll get a different angle, a different view, and that usually finds quite a few things that you didn't see. And again, the thing that screws with you is as soon as you get the black on there, it starts to reflect into the primer. It makes it difficult to see, so I go over it many times. But regardless, like I said, I end up with 4 coats of paint, of actual color paint on everything. So hopefully it'll hold up, but I'll get all this buttoned up and let it cure. And we got unseasonably warm weather. It's like 70 degrees out today, and it's November, so it was a good day to get all this done so we can get back on this project. So I'm going to get all this painted up, and I'm hopefully going to be able to get it back into the shop before the evening comes and the dew falls. Alright, so it's been a few days, and the paint, I'm sure, is, cured enough that we can move forward. So the first thing we're going to start with is putting new races in these hubs. We're going to get these hubs all cleaned up, press the races in. I don't have a shop press, so I'm going to be using that Lyle tool that I recently got. I'm going to put them in, get them all cleaned up, and get them ready to go. I want to paint the hubs as well. But I'm not going to be using a spray gun. I'm just going to primer and paint with aerosol cans. It'll be plenty suitable for that. Alright, so I pulled these studs out because the previous truck that this was on needed a shorter one. We need a longer one for what we're doing. So I got my sliding micrometer here, and we got 0.93. I like to go around different parts and see the widest. I don't want to go with the smallest. It's like 4 or 5, because these will kind of peel off, or they'll get smaller as you drive them in, even though it is hardened. I mean, you're going to cast. So we got 0.9. We haven't hit. There's 45 right there, 0.945. I'm going to take the average of what we got. I'm thinking 0.940, 0.945. 0.940 to 0.945. And then our length that we have currently is approximately
3.635. So we have 3.635. Alright, so this is too short. So we need to add, I believe, so if I add 1.25, so we need 4.885 or something similar. I can go longer, I don't want to go any shorter. The whole purpose of replacing these is the fact that I want to put aluminum wheels on it. I may do inner and outer aluminums, I'm not sure, or I may do a steel inner, aluminum outer. It just depends on where we're at in the budget. So on the front here, you may not be able to see this, but there's about a 1/2 inch of stud sticking out here, and this is a steel wheel. The steel wheel is typically right around 3/8 of an inch thick right in here, and an aluminum is almost an inch. It's like 7/8 of an inch, so we're basically 5/8 of an inch thicker on the wheel itself. So 5/8, we're going to be, the lug nut's going to be out past the stud. Now a lot of times if it's original axle, I am able to knock the rear ones out and just move them forward. A lot of times they'll fit the hub and they'll be longer because they were set up for the original duals on the rear. In this case, that's a different rear axle. It's not what this originally came with. So I need to take this wheel off, knock one stud out, measure it, and make sure that the rears will work here. Because typically in a single axle truck, meaning single rear axle, I usually have to buy 20 lug nuts, 20 lug studs, wheel studs for the rear. I'm able to usually reuse the front. So let's get this off. Alright, so you saw the 1/2 inch Milwaukee was struggling. I'm down to 2 bars on that battery. So let's go back to them 2 lug nuts that wouldn't do it. This is the Milwaukee 3/4 inch. With a fresh battery. They've come out with an actual D-handled tire impact with a 6-inch anvil, 1-inch drive, and I'm waiting for that to come out because I'd really like to have that. Rarely will these slide off. This is the rear, this is the front, and they are actually quite a bit different. This one is right on at 1-inch knurl right here, and our other one was 940 to 945, so they are quite a bit different. The head size is quite a bit different. Of course, the thread and the diameter there is the same, but we won't be able to move these forward, so we're going to have to order 20 for the front as well. So I'm going to measure this up just like I did the other one. And another thing I should have mentioned was you'll need to know the distance of this knurl. where the threads actually start. Like, see where the taper's at right there? And I'll make myself a little diagram. Basically, I'll draw this and I'll show, you know, right there where the step down starts and where the threads begin, so that I can compare it on the website. I understand a lot of you guys that watch what we're doing, you guys do this all the time, and it's not new to you. And you know, this kind of information isn't for you. If you do it all the time and you know it, fantastic. I just ask you to be respectful from the guys that leave comments who don't know or haven't done this, because when I talk about stuff like that, that's who it's geared toward. It's geared towards someone who doesn't know, has an interest, finds it interesting, not the guy that's been doing it for 50 years. I'm going to get this measured up now. Alright, so if you can see this, I've got all my measurements here laid out in a diagram, and then I take the actual length here, and the needed length I need to add 5/8 of an inch, because the aluminum wheels are 5/8 of an inch wider than the steel, because they're 7/8, so it's really like half an inch, but I go 5/8. So we change that to decimal 0.625, so we need 4.125 for the total length on the front. And for the rear we need 4.80. There wasn't a huge difference in the original measurements on the front ones, the length. I'm only talking, you know, 3.65 and 3.5. So they weren't really that different. The difference would have been, you know, how many threads were past the lug nut on the Freightliner suspension and axle versus what was on the Ford. So anyways, that's what we need to do. So now I'll get onto Michigan Springs website and see if I can find something close. We'll compromise. Again, we can go a little bit longer on the knurls themselves, but I always mark how much shaft we have here for the knurling and try and get it as close to the total length of that shaft as we can. My wife brought me a break time snack, a couple homemade chocolate chip cookies. So that'll do on that one. I'll get it cleaned up and then we'll start painting. I'll give it 2 coats of rusty metal primer and then I'll put paint on it. Well, I started looking through my wheel studs, and I do have some I removed from a Freightliner not long ago. And these were set up for a steel inner, aluminum outer. So they're just a little bit short for doing two aluminums, but if I do one steel inner like this and an aluminum outer, it'll be just fine. So I think I'm going to run with these because these are like $10 and something a piece, and I have 18 of them. So I'd only have to buy 2 of these, so that's not too bad. And I was able to find them on their website, something close enough to work. So I think we're gonna go ahead and order those. So I'm only gonna have to order 22 lug nuts instead of 40. So that's nice. That's why I hang on to these. You know, the serrations are still good. Knurling, serration. I guess they're actually serrations, not knurlings. But they're still good and sharp. And as long as they press into our hubs well, then we'll go ahead and use them. So I'm gonna go ahead and push them in and see what it looks like. Alright, so those pressed in pretty good. So now I'm going to clean up the inside of the hub and get the races ready to go in. Alright, so I got out this new tool I got from Lyle, the 61900. It's supposed to be the medium and heavy seal and race installer tool, which, you know, fits my application right here pretty good. The problem is, it goes in here okay, but the striking handle is 21 thousandths bigger than this one. So I took emery cloth and started going across it thinking, well, you know, maybe there's just a burr on it. There's nothing. It's just 21 thousandths too big. So I called the Lyle out in Iowa, whatever it was, and they sent me through to a guy. He goes, huh, okay, well, we'll send you another one. A lot of good that does me today. So I guess I'm gonna have to, you know, use this as an extension, even though I don't need an extension, but it's just frustrating, you know? We can do better. I'm checking to make sure that that race is seated all the way around. You can usually tell by that detectable change in tone, but you know, there's a reason that these are aluminum. It's so you're using a softer metal to drive in a harder metal, and I go around with it after that. Just go around the edge and make sure that it's seated with a brass punch. This is an oil bath bearing, and I need to make sure that I'm driving it in correctly. It says right here bearing side, so it's intended to go in this way. I'll hold off putting that oil in until we're ready to put the hub on the truck. That way I'm not making a bigger mess than I need to. happy with that. Okay, I have switched over to the correct size for the outer bearing. Hear that definite tone difference. I think it's in there, but I like to hit it a few more times. Alright, so I was able to drive in the other two races and put the inner bearing in and the seal, and I got 7 of the studs driven in on this side. I left one out so I can reference it while I'm ordering them, because I held off ordering the front studs and the rear until I knew if I had any or not, and I'm glad I did, because that just saved me about $180. So I'm gonna order those. When they come in, we'll put that in, but the next video we'll be putting the rear end, should be putting it in, moving the cross member up, getting it mounted up, and start putting our hardware together. So that's it for this one. If you guys like what we're doing, give us a thumbs up. If you haven't already, hit the subscribe button. Leave your comments down below, guys. We will catch you on the next one.